What's a subtle sign of low intelligence? Story 1. Thinking their opinion/perspective is also everyone else's. Thinking no one does that because they don't do that. Everyone puts their cereal at the top of the pantry. That's just where it goes. My sister. Yeah, not me. I believe overgeneralization from self is the technical term for it. I'm an experimental psychologist. The false consensus effect is the term you're looking for. Overgeneralization from self isn't a phrase I've heard. If someone in my field, social psychology, were to use it, I would guess that person was referring to maybe self-other overlap, an entirely different concept. This guy hasn't heard it, so no one has. Sorry, I believe you. I just couldn't resist. I thought this too for many years. About 10 years ago, I learned that this is a trait of many people with autism spectrum disorder. For many people with ASD, they simply cannot fathom that someone would not like the same things they like/keep things in the same places. It's not an intelligence issue for them. It's the way their brain works. This was a light bulb moment for me as a parent to an autistic kid. Remember, everyone thinks differently. It's something I say often. I don't know why you're mad because I don't have the same thoughts. Edit. Thank you, anonymous person, for my wholesome award. I didn't know that was a thing. I hope you all have a great day. I have this problem, and I usually get mad when I feel like the other side doesn't understand me and my way of thinking, else they would come to the same conclusion. Growing up, I realized it's a waste of energy, and I just don't care for the most part. But with people I care about, I can still get riled up if they have an extremely different opinion than me, and if I can't understand why, I get furious. Sometimes I'd just like to turn it off and stop caring altogether. Especially sucks since I annoy only people that I care about with it. I kind of feel I had this growing up. I kind of feel that kids have it growing up. That's why they get so annoying as teenagers, because they think they know everything. Or maybe that's just a general consensus. I kind of found myself getting out of that way of thinking when I started traveling more and experiencing different cultures and realizing not everybody thinks the same way I do or people in America do. So I'm thankful for that. Story 2. I need to please her for many reasons. I guess the first and foremost is because that's what I would want from a significant other. However, in the last year or so, it's been more just because I cannot stand her when she's upset, because she takes it out on me. I'll try to explain the final straw for me. Basically, my work schedule changed from working 12-hour shifts overnight with dedicated days off to 8-hour shifts overnight with maybe one day off. She works from home 30 hours a week in the morning, so our time together has been cut shorter. We both love video games, and lately we've been playing one together. Even though the game in question isn't my cup of tea, it used to be, but after hundreds of hours of play, it's dull to me. I still play to see her happy. It's not terrible, but I would rather be doing something else. However, because of my schedule, we don't have much time to get into the game, so she's been wanting me to wake up earlier. Mind you, I'm still adapting to the new hours at work, suffer from sleep apnea, and have always had trouble sleeping. I spent about a week where every single day I would wake up, play our game, go to work, come home, maybe play some more, and go to bed. And that's it. Nothing for myself, despite having several talks about how the game just isn't keeping my attention anymore and I'd like to do something else, even together. Not good enough for her. She has been struggling to find entertainment by herself lately, and this game with me playing is all she wants. And since we could get a max of 2 hours before I go to work, it's already not enough for her. So I tell her I will try to get up earlier, literally cut my own sleeping hours down so we have more time together. But I said I need her help because I'm bad at waking up. She knows this. We've been together for almost 5 years. Next day, she tries to wake me up, and I'm half asleep and barely even remember it. She goes and makes food in the kitchen. I'm slowly waking up laying in bed at this point. I lie in bed for about another half hour, then go take my morning dump. When I exit the bedroom, all the food is already put away. I find her crying in the den. She cries all the time because she has never been able to deal with even slight disappointment. I ask what's wrong, and she just lies to me saying how I don't care about her because if I did, I would get up earlier and play. I lay right back into her saying I'm not her fracking pet, saying I've spent every single waking hour lately doing either what she wants me to do or being at work. Nothing else. I say to help me get up earlier with more than just a light touch on the arm, maybe sit with me and talk or something, and she says she's not my mother and shouldn't have to do that for a grown man. She loves to wound me like that, belittle me, and make every attempt of compromise into some act of contrition. There's tons more, of course, but it always boils down to this kind of argument, where she expects more out of me but refuses to budge on compromise. Meanwhile, every single time I bring up an issue I have with her, which is very seldom, it's either turned around on me, well, you do this too when you insert thing I did years ago, or blames it on her ASD. She refuses to go to any kind of therapy or doctor. I have my own health issues too. I have terrible ADHD and anxiety, but if I ever use them as an excuse for, say, the times where I zone out while she's talking, it doesn't matter to her. All that matters is that her feelings are hurt. I can count on one hand how many times she said she was sorry or apologized in 5 years. Meanwhile, I apologize every single time she brings something to my attention and try to work on it. She is not the center of the universe, and I'm so tired of eating smeg and feeling worthless. Sorry for the essay. I didn't mean to write this much. I'm just in a smeggy place right now. Just gonna keep drinking until she can move out. Who knows how long that will take? There should be a better solution for that. It just sounds like she's just demanding. That could be true of either person in a relationship, man or woman. And just manipulative. And I don't think she has very much self-awareness if she's able to find herself blameless but turn every problem around on him. I hope he just doesn't do the drinking thing and just finds a way to get out of the relationship. It sounds like he deserves much better, especially with how giving he is to the person in the relationship that he's in. Story 3. Thinking the world is simple. Arguing in absolutes. The world is definitely not simple, but I like to look at it from a simplistic point of view because it makes me feel less anxious and it lets me enjoy life better. But I agree, it's definitely a complicated world we live in. Honestly, thinking about almost anything is simple. I've seen it so many times. I still joke with some coworkers about a boss and his cronies who would constantly interject, "It's pretty frackin' simple," in discussions ranging from politics to civil engineering. E.g., someone mentions welfare and you'd get, "It's pretty frackin' simple. Don't just hand money out to people for nothing. Why would anybody ever try to get a job if we just gave them money?" This is so frustrating, especially given that it impacts how people vote. The comment section of news articles on the BBC website about Brexit, for example, were full of simplistic statements by readers. Many of them started with the word just, and many ended with simples, or most infuriatingly, end of. This was at a time when an influential British politician claimed that the people of Britain were fed up with experts, which I'm sure was met with gammon-faced agreement by all those who think that all we need to do is a simple common-sense solution that the so-called experts are too blind to see. COVID has seen similar opinions from people who get their information from Facebook or from some guy spouting off in the pub. It's the mindset of people who are unaware of the complex nuances of the situation and seek what they think is an easy, uncomplicated solution. It's deliberately ignoring what experts say because acknowledging that it's too difficult for them to understand properly leaves them feeling insecure. It's not always blissful. There are nihilists who complain that life is not worth living because it makes no difference in the grand scheme of things. Their perspective is so devoid of detail that they can only see things at the most absolute broad level possible. There are those who meet or hear about some bad people and then claim that all of humanity or life in general is bad and must be extinguished. It's like they deny the existence of light because there's darkness and can't fathom a universe where both can exist. It's really sad, in my opinion. A lot of those people seem to be dealing with severe depression. I've been there, but instead of recognizing that the problem is within themselves, they try to use reason to justify their depressive thinking as universal truths. Like, yeah, there is some bad stuff out there, but that's not all there is. And lacking the ability to see the good doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I'd say it's more a lack of wisdom than a lack of intelligence, though. It takes quite a bit of intelligence to rationalize and draw conclusions. But it takes wisdom to choose a method of rationalization that leads to conclusions that are meaningfully or usefully relevant. I'm reading this, and all I'm thinking of is Thanos from the Marvel movies. He had so much power, all the gems, and all the Marvel people are probably going to drag me for not remembering all the names of the gems off the top of my head. Time, space, matter, I forget. There were 5 of them, and he had like absolute control over everything, over such complex concepts and abilities, and his solution was simple: eliminate half the people. I think that's your example right there of this. Story 4. People who don't know what the word subtle means. Subtle sign of low intelligence. Misunderstanding the question and hijacking the thread. This is online. If something says subtle or controversial, everyone is going to comment their most blatantly obvious and widely accepted opinions for easy karma. Well, Keith from down the pub, who regularly picks fights with minorities and sports several swastika tattoos, disagrees with me, so I wasn't sure if it was an unpopular opinion. I've also noticed that the comments are all based on humans. The question didn't say human intelligence. No one thought outside the box. A subtle sign of low intelligence? It's just an abbreviation for subtitles. It was created in 1956 by a woman named Francine DeMallo, who worked for Warner Brothers and was spearheading their innovative new closed captioning technology. She became one of the best abbreviations of all time. In fact, when her family first arrived here in the United States of America, her great-grandfather, Vincent Marshmallow, became so annoyed with constantly referring to his new home by such a long name that he started just calling it the USA, and that's why we now use that abbreviation. You see, it ran in Frankie's family, and old Vinny didn't stop there. He's also responsible for shortening Charles to Chuck, and Robert to Bobby, James to Jim, and William to Bill. He was on a tear during the Great Depression when his most controversial name abbreviation became public. After a few years of hobnobbing with jazz musicians and getting addicted to marijuana, Vinny D, in a state of pure grass-induced mental collapse, was standing in front of a judge being sentenced for eating ice cream out of a shoe between 6 and 9 in the morning on the second Sunday of July, which was at the time illegal in Springfield. The Honorable Judge Richard Bauer was slamming his gavel down to send Vin to the Hoosgow for a 3-day stint when Mr. DM stood up and shouted, "Dick, how can you be so heartless and without compassion?" thus creating the shortened version of Richard and changing the vocabulary of humanity once again. Story 5. They have a conspicuously small spread of skills for such a high-level wizard. All I need is a fireball. If someone disagrees, fireball. If someone agrees, fireball. If someone is ambivalent, fireball. You would not believe it, but spell slots open at the end of the day. Fireball. Whenever I have a problem, I just cast fireball, and then I have a completely different problem. A wizard with the intelligence of Jason Mendoza is a scary thought. I put on my robe and wizard hat. Dungeons & Dragons. In several editions of D&D, the number of skill points you get is based off a multiple of your character's intelligence score and your character's overall level. If a player has a high-level wizard, but somehow has very few skills, then it's indicative that they earn very few skill points, and thus have a low intelligence score. This would be very uncommon for wizards especially, as wizards use intelligence for their spell casting and most other abilities, so they tend to have high intelligence scores and an abundance of skill points. I have now unalived the joke. That totally reminds me of a Pathfinder masterpiece performance, Pageant of the Peacock. A bard can spend a bardic performance round and for 10 minutes get +4 to bluff checks, as well as the option to use a bluff check in place of any intelligence-based stat or skill check, including knowledge checks. But if you pass a knowledge check, the info you have must be correct, so it isn't like you're making up false stuff. You basically ad-lib a hogwash story on the fly, but it just so happens that you were 100% on point by complete accident because you bluffed all of reality, and reality failed its sense motive role. You're not just a hogwash artist, you're hogwash Rembrandt. If you've read or watched Eminence in the Shadow, I'm absolutely convinced Sid Kageno has this performance active 24/7.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 6. Uses only empty buzzwords in their conversations. I've got a coworker who only communicates in phrases like situational awareness and following breadcrumbs, and asks for meetings to amplify our synergy. This person was promoted beyond their level of competence and has no idea how to do their job. I do love the term situation awareness, though. Some people truly lack it. This term was thrown around a lot in my military days. My fiancé and I speak to each other in corporate when someone uses a buzzword and we want to make lighthearted fun of each other. Let's take that offline. Can we table this discussion? Can we circle back? Drill down. I'll correspond with you on that. Edit. Yes, all of the responses also have great corporate hogwash. I use it day to day, but also can make fun of myself for using it. My manager uses circle back all the time. It 9 out of 10 times means, I acknowledge what you're saying, but we'll forget about it after this meeting. Let's pop that on the back burner for now. Equals, this idea will never resurface, just like your last 20 suggestions. I'd say the biggest and funniest version of this, look up the song Mission Statement by Weird Al Yankovic. Not only did he take Crosby, Still, Nash & Young's music style that usually raged against corporations and big business, but it is loaded with all those corporate buzzwords, and he got a company that is known for doing whiteboard animations for corporations to do the video for him. Look it up. It's amazing. Story 7. Not understanding analogies very well. Let's say this rock is a seed but it's a rock. I know, it's a rock. Listen, this seed, it's small at first, but eventually it will grow into a big tree, way larger than all of us one day. But that's a rock. I know it's a rock. Yeah, it's like when you tell someone an analogy and they don't get it. They're probably not the brightest knife in the shed. Hey, people in glass houses sink ships. Don't cross the road if you can't get out of the kitchen. You can lead a gift horse to water, but you can't make him look at your mouth. And responding, did you really just compare blank to blank? I most often encounter this when someone is trying to worm their way around a problem in their original thinking that an analogy makes way clearer than the initial argument, which is basically the entire point of an analogy to begin with. Instead of addressing the now obvious flaw of countering with a more appropriate analogy of their own to show how their logic is not, in fact, flawed, they resort to just incredulously asking why I could possibly be so daft as to compare blank to blank. Story 8. I've noticed that the dumber someone is, the dumber they assume everyone else is. Smarter people will often try to see the other side of an argument, assuming there's nothing else at play, like low self-esteem. People with lower intelligence often assume that people who disagree with them are simply dumb because they imagine their arguments to be dumb. Likewise, people that lie, steal, cheat, etc. also tend to assume everyone else does, or would given the chance. Got into an argument online where they told me there was no way either of us would know something because we weren't scientists, and because of that can't make any claims. When I corrected them that I actually was a published scientist that has taught for over a decade, they blocked me. Edit. Since this is blown up, I just wanted to add that I think scientific ignorance is the greatest threat to humanity, and I'm open to any solutions. I dedicated a large part of my life to educating thousands of students, but I can't help feeling the problem is getting worse. Story 9. Buying a new car when you're broke as hell. Dude, yes. I have a friend who's broke, already barely making ends meet. What did she do a few months ago? Buy a truck when gas is $5 a gallon. Now she can't even afford to take her kid to the dentist when he has cavities so bad his teeth hurt. Ticks me off to see, honestly. This is shockingly common. My friend's brother will complain about how groceries are so expensive that they can't afford to fill their pantry, but drives an $80,000 Dodge Ram, even though they already owned a new minivan and 2 work trucks. He recently had to pull his kid out of hockey because he couldn't afford it, but he's out there blaming Justin Trudeau and not the $80,000 truck that takes $300 in gas a week and costs $500 a month to insure. I used to be friends with someone like this. She bought a $400 Michael Kors purse that she already had in a different color and then called me crying like a week or 2 later because she couldn't make rent. Story 10. Calling something stupid because they can't understand it. OMG, the worst lines in history of arguments are, "Well, you wouldn't understand," or "There's no point arguing with you." I know now those lines come from a deep insecurity. The person is trying so hard to win the argument because deep down, they need to know they matter, and they think that winning arguments is finally going to make them feel like they do. They have this belief instilled in them that being wrong is equal to being wrong. The problem with this belief is that the only way to be right is for another person to not be. So someone has to lose. I've also been that person, by the way. I grew up in a family that had this belief instilled in them, and it sucked. I was the youngest, so I was stupid. Spend some time online and you'll learn there really are plenty of people in the world where "there's no point in arguing with you" is a valid statement. Unfortunately, it usually comes after attempting a discussion and realizing the other person is not equipped for it or interested in facts whatsoever. When you present a logical point and they say, "No, you are," they are in fact not worth arguing with. Story 11. People who confuse their opinions with facts. To add, people who think they know everything are generally pretty stupid. Smart or smarter people will defer questions to qualified and experienced individuals because they're actually aware of their own limitations. And that's what helps make them smart. They're not scared to admit they lack knowledge in certain topics or fields. And they will learn from that more experienced person to add to their library of knowledge and experience. Stupid people don't know they're stupid. They think they know everything and won't seek out more experienced people and admit to their limitations. Admit they don't know frack all about certain things. To add, I think intelligence in a large part is achieved through curiosity. If you think you already know everything, you're no longer curious. Your knowledge is then stuck in the state it was when you decided to stop learning new things. Story 12. The inability to extrapolate from missing. Edit. And apparently the inability to perform error correction while reading. Missing what? There are 2 types of people in this world. Those who can extrapolate from incomplete data. I have a shirt that has this on it. I also have a good friend who doesn't understand it. Edit. Can someone please tell me how me mentioning one of my many geeky shirts has led to my first comment of over 1,000 upvotes? Also, thanks. I have this same shirt. Friends get it. Some family members, however. Story 13. Not capable of understanding a nuanced point. I think the complete opposite, and there's no middle ground. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. Much of the time, by my experience, it's them not wanting to get the nuance of the point. They get it, they just don't want to let go of their desired belief, even though evidence clearly doesn't support it. Story 14. Believing anything they read on social media. I mean, schools have cat litter boxes in the bathroom for the furries, didn't you hear? Man, some of my extended family believe this. It's crazy. So, should I believe you or? Depends. Does it tickle your bias? Story 15. The inability or unwillingness to change one's opinion when confronted with new information. If a person just digs their heels in no matter how much they're proven wrong on a given topic, they're an idiot. I think it's also a matter of pride. Some people just hate being wrong and admitting to it, even if they know they are. Story 16. Inability to accept new ideas. A truly intelligent person will listen and try to learn from something, even if they believe it's bogus. Edit. I meant a truly, not I truly. I'm not like that, I swear. But we've always done it this way. And that's why we suck. Story 17. Absolutely no curiosity about anything.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.